Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Circle of the World podcast, where we discuss Joe Abercrombie's First Law series. I am one of your hosts, Lord Chamberlain Jeffrey, and here are my co-hosts.
Archlex George.
And Harrison, the Adeptus Historical.
We continue our coverage of Best Served Cold, Joe's first standalone and the next First Law entry after the original trilogy. And on this episode, we review Downwards and Rats in a Sack. So let's get started. As usual, we got to thank you all for your support. Had a couple more people subscribe on YouTube. That was great. Love that.
Woo.
Anyone that's ever contributed to the formation of this podcast, you know who you are. Thank you very much. And as usual, a reminder for you to follow us on our social media and our YouTube page. Keep it up, folks. We are only 257 people away from our target. So
Wait, what's our target?
I have no idea. It's 258. So let's keep it going. Boys, do you want to say anything in terms of thanking the folks?
Not yet, but later.
Not yet, but later. Okay,
Yeah.
Interesting. Delayed gratification. I love it. All right, so let's move on to our first segment, which is Best Meme of the Week. As everyone knows, Georgie Boy, this is you. Take it away.
So this is from Please Help This Bills fan on Reddit, and this is a spoiler for Red Country, but just noticed that the mayor of Crease is quite familiar, and then it's Kevin from The Office. And why make new character when old character do trick?
It's not even like whenever you think about it, it's not that funny, but when you read it with a picture, it's hilarious.
I mean, it's absolutely right as well. I mean, Joe does this where characters will pop up again in different situations, but it's always justified. I think it's always like it makes sense for those characters to be in those situations.
Yeah.
And usually, too, they don't ever say their old name. And in a way, many times these kinds of characters, especially that character, is a different person. So I like it, even though they're the same person, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, and there's another one that kind of has a different name as well in that book, and I would like to say they are definitely the same person.
He may be a bad man.
Yeah, I've heard sometimes that I've seen videos of some baby, sheep that they'll scream. You ever heard that?
Yeah. Like,
No,
the ends
no.
of your fucking legs, I've heard one say before.
Oh yes. Oh Jesus! All right, there we go. Never mind.
That was a very scary lamb.
I will not reenact the sound then. That we'll just keep it in that that spirit. So all right, so we'll move on to our first chapter read through. George, thank you for that meme. We appreciate it. And our first chapter read through is Downwards, and we start up from the perspective of Shivers. And the whole group is traveling. They're hanging out. They are traveling towards Viscerine. And well, folks, let's remember that Viscerine is the next target for Duke Orso's army. That's his regular standing army and the 1,000 Swords, those homies. And let's say that people aren't necessarily looking forward to their arrival. It's like the house guest that you know is coming that you just hate, but that you invited,
Yeah, out of necessity.
out of necessity, I guess, because they know your friends, and if you didn't invite them, they will get upset. You don't really give a shit, but then your friends will hear it, and then they'll, shit rolls downhill towards you. The more I think about it, the more this analogy doesn't make sense, but the spirit is there. The spirit is there. So the reason I say this is that the folks of Viscerine, the Viscerinians, are not exactly thrilled with this prospect. And so
I believe it's Viscerite.
the Viscer.
You almost said it without even hesitating.
I almost said it. I literally was like, Viscerite? And I was like, wait a minute. The Viscerites are split into two groups. We have one group who are trying everything they can to desperately get into the city. Then we have the other group that are trying everything they can to desperately get out of the city.
I mean, it makes sense that you want to leave, get the fuck out of there, don't you? Because, I think they've already talked about it as well. Like, when a city gets sacked, like, nobody gets fucking spared. Everybody gets, like, brutalized or have all their stuff stolen. So Wanting to get into the city is just it's a bit dumb.
Right. So you want to kind of get us through the mindset of why these people would want to get into the city? I mean, we'll talk about it right
It's
now.
just like, big strong walls and you just feel safe there among everybody else, Even though it is
it's a dead end.
it's a bit of a fallacy, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I
Which
would.
is sad.
Yeah, right. You would think that you would take your chances out and about, like somewhere farther out of the way, maybe. But who knows?
Hey, just go in the opposite direction.
I know that
just keep going the opposite direction.
It's kind of weird though, right? Because most of these people have been dealing with warfare, and most Asterians seem to be like decently educated, right? So it is kind of weird that a lot of them are going into the city, but maybe they're thinking that the city will hold out until like Austria gets there, and maybe that's their thought process. But ordinarily in these situations, I would think, oh, these people just don't know better because this is their first war. But it is a little weird because they've been at war for 20 years, so
That is true. That is true. So this is happening, right? We have two groups of people trying to get out of Visserine or into Visserine, and we have Shivers observing that Visserine has a lot of towers, way more than he's ever seen in the north. Casca remarks that there's always been like a fashion for towers, even going back to the days of the New Empire, where families would compete against each other to build the tallest ones. And there was one, because apparently Casca was born and raised in Visserine, and he saw one tower that was being built collapse and killed at least collapse a dozen other dwellings, and a bunch of poor people died. And he makes note that it's always the poor who are crushed under rich men's ambitions, and yet they rarely complain because. And then Shivers retorts by saying that they dream of having towers of their own. And Casca goes, you know what? Yes, I suppose that's the reason. So.
It's a bit of a classic political commentary there from Joe.
Yep.
Yeah. And then, they get closer. I can't. Is it dusk or is it dawn? Is the night falling or is the sun?
I think they start lighting torches, don't they? So I assume it's coming down.
Yeah. Okay. So they get to the gate. Well, they're getting close to the gate, but in the meantime, Shivers is kind of ruminating about what happened at Cardati's. Our boy is not entirely too thrilled or pleased with himself with the fact that in the mayhem, he accidentally killed a woman. And he comes from the north where it is looked down upon to kill a woman. It is not cool. You kill a man in battle, then that is fine. You kill a woman, you are a dick. And
yeah, it's pretty cool actually how like Joe is so good at writing like the culture of the North. Maybe because it's like his weird fusion of different European nations that he's got cobbled together. But he does such a good job at showing the culture through the point of view of the character's eyes. Like in a lot of the series, it's like everything is so it's grim dark and people die all the time. But like in the North, you don't ever really see women and children die. It's like not a thing because like even though there's a ton of warfare all the time, and yeah, there are bad people who like Black Dow and obviously the Bloody Nine who've done terrible people to women and children. Everybody, even the people who don't follow the old ways, quote unquote, still think that that's some bullshit. So it is kind of cool how he implements this because I remember the first time reading this thinking, really? You haven't killed a woman before? Like in this universe? But it is a part of like their culture. Like it's a big no-no. You kill as many men as you want, but women and children, why would you do that? Yeah, pretty cool little detail.
Yeah, and well, Shivers is kind of coming to grips with the notion that his desire to be a better man kind of was on shaky legs to begin with, and he's not doing much to disabuse himself of the notion that he's actually not a good man or a decent man. So maybe why even bother trying? Right?
I like the quote there at the end of this monologue where he's like, when he's set to killing folk, there's no right place to stop that means a thing.
Yep.
It's got a point, like, he's just kind of doing it for himself. He can make up whatever noble lie he wants about why he's doing it, but at the end of the day, he's still doing bad things.
Yeah. Yep. Casca notes that Shivers has a dark look on his face. Shivers says basically that doesn't see anything funny about there's no time. It's not a good time for jokes or humor. Even Casca kind of admits that he's failing to see the funny side of things right now, looking around at the view, the scene. And then Manza kind of comes closer to them and says that she'll get them in somehow. Not sure how that's going to work. And then Morveer,
Money.
money, that's right. And Morveer, he pipes up and he says, "Are you are absolutely convinced that we should enter?" And she goes, "Yeah, Orso's army can't be more than 2 days behind us, so that means Ganmark, Faithful Carpi too, maybe. Wherever they are is where we need to be, and that's all." And Morveer, he responds by saying, "You are my boss, okay? But I am duty bound to point out that there is such a thing as being too determined. Maybe, for sure, we can definitely, figure out a less perilous alternative to trapping ourselves in a city that will soon be surrounded by hostile forces." She says that they'll do no good waiting there, and then he says, no good will be done if we are all killed. A plan too brittle to bend with circumstances worse than no plan. And then she just turns around and walks away, and he goes, "Women." And then Vitari goes, "What about them?" And he goes, "Present company entirely accepted. They are prone to think with heart rather than head." And she says, "For what she's paying, she can think with her ass for all I care."
It's such a Vitari saying. She goes from being like, she always has like a way with words. They're so brash. Like,
Yeah. And then Morveer says, "Dying rich is still dying," but then Shivers, he includes, well, he says it's better than dying poor. uh,
Not if you don't get to enjoy it, Shivers. Does he not understand the
Yeah,
concept?
I don't know what he thinks how this works. So listen, I know that there's a certain I guess viewpoint, but I'll say this right now: Morveer is right in my opinion at this point.
Yes.
There's got to be a different way to go about this.
Especially because the rest of their plans, no matter how tight they seemed on the surface, all fell apart.
Have all gone to shit. All right, they've
So
all.
yeah, literally walking into the city where the enemy are going to be swarming through and killing everyone indiscriminately,
Mm-hmm.
and then trying to kill the leader of that army.
Yeah,
That is a little far fetched.
it is a little far fetched.
that seems to be the common thing, right? Is that Morveer is right, but because of how he is otherwise, no one wants to listen to him both in and outside the book. We only want to listen to him because we understand him, and we're trying to look at this really objectively. But even my first time I read it, I'm like, Morveer, what do you know, you prick? No one wants to listen to him.
And then you read the chapter, you were like, never mind.
Yeah, I guess you're right.
I will say this too. And the more I think about it's like the regression of the quality of each mission, right? When they first killed Gaba, that went off without a hitch.
Yeah,
no problem.
Easy peasy. When they killed Malthus, that actually was a success. There was just a lot of collateral damage.
right.
And then Cardades was a shit show.
Yep. I'm sure this one won't be.
Yeah, we see how this is gonna go. Anyway, so Monza comes back with about 6 guards. They point at the group. They say, "Okay, you guys and only you guys can come through." So as you said, Harrison, money, money, money talks, and this does not make the rest of the folks there happy. Farmers and other people, they're upset. They're booing. They're jeering. One guy goes, "What the fuck? It ain't right. I pay my taxes, and I got left out. What the fuck is this bullshit? I got my family to think about." And he gets right up in Shivers' face, right? And he grabs Shivers, I believe. Yeah. So
I think he just walks up to him, doesn't he? And Shivers just fucking smashes him.
No. He grabs Shivers' arm. He grabs Shivers' arm.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And then Shivers just smashes his face with his fist, holds him up, cracks him another time, and then basically puts his boot on him to kind of squish his face in the ground some more. To Shivers, he goes, "Listen, if you start trouble, it's better to start it and finish it all at once." And he tells the guy, "It's best stay where you are." And then he looks at everybody else, and everyone else is kind of cowering, except one boy that kind of looks like he's going to do something.
I love this line as well. It's like,
Oh yeah, he goes,
you feel a person needs to lie down.
Yeah.
It's a pretty badass line.
That is a cool line.
That's excellent.
And then the kid goes, he just shakes his head. He goes, "Nope, sir. Nope, never mind. Daddy can be there for all I care about." and then as after they start walking away, then they kind of hear the booing and jeering again, but no one stops them this time. And then they enter the city at this point. And do we want to talk about anything so far, like maybe Shiver's mindset as we're entering Viscerine?
He's like you said, Jeff. Like he's definitely kind of embracing the fact that he's not becoming a better person, and it's almost sort of like Logan-esque, like the way that he's like projecting his sort of like the menace, even though he doesn't really feel like it.
You know what? It's something that's not I don't think talked about enough is they talk about how similar they are, right? All the time in the book. It's kind of like, oh, they kind of have the same kind of arc, but I think it's the opposite, right? Like he is showing to be like, yeah, he is similar to the way Logan is, but in the opposite way.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense? Like,
yeah,
he's having the same thoughts that Logan was about being a good man as he is being a bad man, and they're both not fundamentally changing. They're both just well, me and George and I talked about a little before. They're both treating the symptom rather than the cause. They're not thinking about why they're taking the actions. They're just reacting to how they are, like the consequences to their actions.
Yeah.
So, it's pretty interesting though, because a lot of people think that he's being like Logan when really he's doing the opposite of Logan, which is what he maybe is unintentionally doing because you know how he feels about Logan. So
yeah, maybe I don't. Do you think he's doing the opposite? I feel like there is a parallel here. I feel like that say for Logan, this obviously takes place across 3 books, right? Where Shivers this is 1 book, so the progression is faster. But we see for the first 2 books, Logan had a very positive outlook. He looked bad on his, he hated his past. This was despondent about that stuff, but tried to make new friends with the Fellowship of the Seed. And it took 2 books, but it didn't take 2 books, but for the first 2 books we saw, he kept it up. And then near the end of the second book, then we, Last Argument Kings, we see him kind of being disabused of that notion, right?
I guess I kind of mean like Logan started off in a place where he saw himself very negatively and started to try to become better, but by the end he kind of is, like his kind of thing is like, is he actually better? And he is always trying to become better, whereas Shivers is kind of having the opposite effect. He started off trying to be better already, but then is slowly at this point trying to be like, well, fuck that. Maybe everybody else is right. Maybe I do need to be a bad guy. Just kind of interesting.
I see what you're saying. Okay, I see.
Whereas Logan's reactions are all kind of like, he goes back to the north and he just turns back into his shit, but it's because he's so defensive.
Yeah.
Like he in his mind he's still going, yeah, this is the right thing to do, even though he's there like fucking like making enemies of everyone.
Yeah. Okay. There's gonna be time for more discussion on the parallels between Shivers and Logan, but okay. Shivers has this brief thought process where he thinks back to Red Three Trees, how honorable he was, a great man through and through. Anybody would follow him. Everyone respected him. All that. Where did I get 3 trees? Fucking murked by the Feared. But meanwhile, somebody like Black Dow, who is as cold as a bastard as the North has ever seen, who could never face the enemy if he could take him in the back, and supposedly has burned villages without a second thought, broke his own oaths and all that stuff. He is now sitting in Scarling's chair with half the North at his feet, and the other half feared to say his name. So he thinks back to that. We know that there's been an update. Maybe there was an update earlier in the book, but we know that there's been an update in terms of the politics of the North right now. That Dow is essentially leading the North. That's what we know so far.
Right. Yeah, and again, to Shiver's credit, he doesn't actually know what it is to be a good man, to touch back on that point, because not truly. And that's why he's only thinking what's the reward, when he's not understanding what the reward actually is.
Yeah. He's not really understanding the notion of being good just for the sake of it.
Right.
And then he looks at Monza and he's admiring, kind of, or maybe begrudgingly admiring the fact that she has that look on her face that once she sets her mind to something, it gets done. Consequences and conscience be damned. Vengeance first, questions later. And the more he thinks about it, the more he's starting to see that she's right. That mercy and cowardice were the same, and that nobody was giving prizes for good behavior. So this is him expecting, you know, rewards or something in
A pat on the head.
return,
Yeah.
and something in return for good behavior. At least that's what we think we see right now. I mean, maybe he's been trying to. Well, no, actually, because so far prior to this chapter and prior to these other chapters, every time we see him in the book, his desire to be a good man kind of predicates on the fact that he expects decent results. He expects to make a new life for himself where he doesn't have to hurt people, where there isn't blood, violence, mayhem, that kind of stuff surrounding him. Not necessarily because of the fact that, like I mentioned before, just to be good, just for the sake of being good. So yeah, as of right now, he's still in the idea, he's still entertaining, well, wrestling with the idea that, well, I'm trying to be good, but nothing good has happened to me in my efforts. So maybe it's shit anyway. So
Yeah.
we'll get more into Shivers obviously as time goes on. And then we kind of get a bit of a break, and then we turn over to Monza's perspective. She's stiff, she's achy wakey. You know, she needed to have some husk.
Some eggs and bakey, right?
Yeah. And she's thinking back to when Visserine was a beautiful place. You know, all these towers, you know, stained glass, all that jazz. She's taking it back to when Benna bought her this place, this apartment. And now it's like, at first she was thinking like, okay, Visserine was packed with people, but now it's packed. Buildings and houses are just bursting to the seam with people. There's, you know,
You do see that, like, she gets a lot darker view of the world, or at least she remembers her previous life with like these rose-tinted glasses. So
yeah, I mean,
to see her perspective sort of changing as well, just remember it in the monologue.
yeah. Although I will say, Monza doesn't strike me as the kind of person to have always had necessarily a positive outlook on life. More that she.
But that's what I mean, exactly. Like, she looks back, and then even though she was probably already like this before, she can look back at a different life and go, "Oh no, that was still better." Like, oh, this used to be so beautiful, even though she probably didn't appreciate it at the time.
I see what you mean. Yep. And so she, like you said, they're riding down the streets, and she looks back at her group and comparing her past with Benna, her brother, her brother, her. She looks at this group of ragtag individuals and she thinks, well, this is my family now. Fuck. But okay, they're all okay, you know, a decent bunch, I guess. Well, except for Vitari, who knows what she's only here but for the money, right? Friendly, who knows what goes on in his fucking head. Casca, oh, how can I trust a guy that I already betrayed? And then she looks at Morbier and goes, that dude, that man is poison, and the moment that he could profit profit by it, he would murder her as easily as crushing a bug. He was already suspicious as the choice to come into Visserine, but the last thing she wanted to do was to share her reasoning. That Orso would have Eider's letter by now, would have offered a king's ransom of Valentin Balk's money for her death, and get half the killers in the circle of the world, name drop, scouring Styria, hoping to put her head in a bag, along with anybody who helped her, of course. So yeah, she's not too entirely thrilled with letting that little snippet get out. Although I think Vitari knows and Casca knows.
Yeah. I think it's interesting too that she says, you know, like, this is kind of like the family I'm stuck with, because she's always been saddled with family. It's never been something she's chosen. And you could say about real life, right? Like, oh, I've never got to choose my family, sure, but like, it's never been something where she has the concept in her mind that she doesn't have to make that connection, doesn't even exist. Like, this is what I have now, so this is family. Like, that's all it is to her. I think that's so interesting for her, how she operates.
And it's very sad as well, I think.
It is very sad.
Joe likes writing his tragic characters, even if they're assholes sometimes. I just want to say as well before we move on, like I love the little world building here where you got that statue where it says charity, justice, and courage, and somebody's like scrolled it out and it says greed, torture, and cowardice.
That's great.
Clearly, people of Visserine don't think so well of their right-hand ruler.
Then she looks at Shivers, right, after kind of going through the group of people, and she goes, "This is the person she can halfway trust." He saved her life in Sapani, and Monza's life wasn't all it had been, but a man saving it still raised him, a decent height in her estimation. And she goes up to him and says that you're quiet all of a sudden, and he goes, "I don't guess I have much to say." And she goes, "Well, never stopped you before." And he says that he's starting to look at things differently. She goes, "Oh, how so?" And he goes, "Look, you might think it comes easy to me, but it's an effort trying to stay hopeful, and it doesn't ever seem to pay off." Again, we're talking about him expecting to be rewarded, right?
Yeah.
And then she goes, "I thought being a better man was its own reward." She has, like, she knows that that's the supposed thinking, but not a lot of people actually follow it. And then he goes, he doesn't, he guesses it's not enough reward for all of the work. And in case you hadn't noticed, we're in the middle of the war. And she knows what it's like because she's been at war one way or another most of her life. And Shivers kind of says the same thing about himself. And then he says that he's starting to think that he might try it her way from now on. And then she goes, "Pick out a god and praise him. Welcome to the real world." But she would be lying. She said she didn't feel a bit of disappointment for all of her grinning. She might have grown up on. She might have given up on being a decent person a long time ago, but somehow she liked the idea that there could still be the possibility that she could point a decent person out. And she goes, "Ugh," she's not liking this. So then she stops everybody. She says that they're here, wherever here is. And turns out here is a house that her and Benna had bought during their previous jaunts in Vesserine. And before they enter, she looks at the door, sees that, oh, it's cracked open a little bit. It's ajar. And she stops him, points at it. Shivers goes, "Okay." They do the silent 1, 2, 3, and then he kicks down the door, and they bust in, weapons at the ready.
FBI!
Get down on the ground. Friendly comes in on the side, and turns out that it's a family of farmers, or there's a farmer, there's his wife, kids, it's a bunch of people. It's like what, dozen or so? Yeah. Oh, Friendly counts 11. Sorry, 11. And
A dozen. We can round up.
Okay, whatever. We'll round it up. And as she's looking, because at first they're like, "Who the hell are you?" And she goes, "Who the fuck are you? This is my house." And she looks at everybody. Then she sees a girl of maybe 16 standing by the fireplace, having a knife in her hand, where she was gutting fish, and in her other arm was a boy, might have been 10 or so. She's protecting him by pushing him behind her shoulder. Just a girl looking out for her little brother. And we know this strikes a chord with Manza. And she immediately says, "Put your sword away," to Shivers. Shivers goes, "Eh?" She says that nobody's getting killed tonight.
Shivers is 100% ready to just murder that family.
He's like, "I've already killed one woman. What's another 4?"
And then he goes, "Oh, look, who's the optimist now?" And she retorts by saying, lucky for you, I bought a big house." She says that there's room for everybody. And the guy, the head farmer goes, "Oh, we're farmers from up the valley just looking for somewhere safe. The place was like this when we found it. We didn't steal anything, and we'll be no trouble." She kind of says, "Okay, that's fine. Yeah, this is all of you?" And he goes, "Yep, my name is Forley. Furley. Not
What
Forley."
was that? Orly? He's alive!
It's Furley with different spelling and everything. And she goes, she doesn't need their names. That's fine. Just stay down here and stay out of their way. That they'll be upstairs, up in the tower. So don't come up there. What?
She's doing the whole like, yeah, whatever. I'm not being nice. I'm just being I'm proper.
Right.
Detach yourself, human.
Yes, yes, yes. And she says, just don't come up there. This way you don't get hurt. And he kind of looks around. He's like, all right. Yeah, I understand. Yeah. Then she tells Friendly to get the horses saddled and the cart off the street. Everything. She gets, makes her way upstairs. She makes her way upstairs. The people are following her quickly. And then Morveer kind of comes up to her when they are out of earshot. She goes, those peasants are a threat, but a problem that's easily fixed. It would not be it's not necessary to use the king of poisons, just a charitable contribution of some bread, and I just dust it with leopard flour, of course, and they would cease to exist. And she goes, no. And he goes, if your intention is to leave them at liberty down there, I must strongly protest at once. And she goes, protest away. Let's see if I give a shit. You and Day take that room. Casca, you're on the second floor of Friendly. Vitari seems like you're sleeping alone next door. Vitari, fine with that? And then Morveer goes, I will go to the cart then and get my equipment into the Butcher Capriol's hostel for displaced peasantry. And he's right.
That's so funny.
He's right.
He is right. He's
so
absolutely right.
So right here.
Maybe you shouldn't poison them all, but
How the fuck else? You just get rid of them. Get rid of them.
Yeah, just get the fuck out of here.
Kill them or get rid of them. I'm sorry. Monza, this is your mission. You got to accomplish it at all costs. You cannot risk leaks, man.
You don't sound...
What?
You don't sound very friendly right now.
Listen, man, this is war. This is an assassination mission. This is Kill Bill Volume 3. This is, all right? She's got to do what it takes, all right?
I do think that you're right, though. I mean, like, Morveer is, for the majority of this book, when he's taking these questionable actions, he is, like, objectively correct. The reason why is because he's thinking, I hate it, but he's right. He's thinking objectively with his head. And not because Monta's a woman, but because of the shit she's been going through.
Right. But, this has nothing to do with her being a woman. She's just not making the smart choices. Yeah. So she takes the advantage. As Morveer walks away, she follows Day into the room. She goes, we need to talk. She goes, what about? She goes, the same thing about in Westport, your boss. And he goes, oh, is he picking at your nerves? And she goes, tell me he doesn't pick at yours. And she says, every day for 3 years, which is, this is a one-sided dynamic here, apparently, with Morveer and Day. And we get, I guess, that kind of official confirmation there. She kind of mentions that, I guess he must not be an easy man to work for, I guess. Sooner or later, though, a pupil has to step out from her master's shadow if she's ever going to become the master herself. And she goes, is that why you betrayed Casca?
Shit. He's got slayed.
Shots fired. Boom. Fuck Jay-Z. Anyway, she goes, yeah, more or less, sometimes you have to take a risk. You got to grasp the nettle. But then you've got much better reasons to do so even than I had. She said it offhand as though it was obvious, and Day goes, what reasons? And Monza pretends to be surprised. She goes, well, sooner or later, Morveer will betray me, and he will go over to Orso. She wasn't sure of it, but she's betting on the probability. Day goes, oh, is that so? Go ahead, Harrison.
I just was going to say, this whole conversation is, you can, like, we don't see very many characters do this. We see Glock do this, and I think maybe Orso does this, and it's a sign of Joe does. And I think it works pretty well of his intelligence of characters. Monza is purposely talking to her in this exact way to try to get a certain reaction out of her. And he's like, in her head, she's playing like, oh, if I say this, then she'll think this. Oh, that's what I want her to think. Perfect. Let me move this. Like, she's totally playing her here. And I really love how he, like, lets it play out in her head, too. And we get to see that. Because, Glock would do the same kind of shit. It's just, I think it's a really cool sign to show that, like, she's a very smart character without saying that she is. Because so much of Monza's character is, like, oh my god, she's pissed off, But she's so much more than that.
Yep, that's very true. And so she goes, she goes, yeah, he doesn't like the way I do things. Dave retorts by saying, well, who says I like the way you do things? Monza goes, what? You don't see it? If he goes to Orso, he's gonna need somebody to blame for Ario, a scapegoat. And now Day goes, wait a minute, nah, he needs me. Monza goes, oh really? How long have you been with him? 3 years? Did you say? But before that, he managed, right? How many assistants do you think he's had since before then? Do you see a lot of them around? And then she didn't say anything. Day doesn't respond. She's thinking. And then Monza, she pushes. She goes, maybe he'll stick and we'll stay a happy family and we'll just go our separate ways as friends. Most poisoners are good sorts when you get to know them. But when he tells you he's going over to Orso, don't say I didn't warn you. And then she walks away. She leaves Dave frowning. Now,
Genius.
yeah,
Genius.
she planted the seed herself. Although
It's
me
not
thinks
subtle, is it?
it's not subtle, and me thinks if she was gonna do this, it should have been done later. Because as of right now, the only thing that Morbier has done to unnecessarily upset Monza or lose her trust, honestly, is what happened in Valen and Bulk. Other than that, hold on. The man has been annoying, for sure. Grating, absolutely. But everything he suggested or argued with her about has been about the success of the mission.
I have an argument against that.
You want to say it now or
No.
in the chapter review?
I think that I'm going to say it now.
Okay.
I think that she has a valid point of her thinking. Like, she kind of went through it, right? Like, you're right. Morbier is right. But the issue is not that somebody is right or objectively being correct, because she doesn't care about that. She's out for revenge. What she cares about is being ratted out. And who's the person to most likely do that? Who's the person to most likely stab her in the back? And who's the person who is most likely going to be successful? I think that all those assumptions about Morbier are correct, as well as him being objectively correct in most instances.
Right. I will then counter that argument that even he might be the most likely to rat her out and everything, but one of his biggest internal motivations for taking the job in the first place, right, besides the money, was A, Monza's singular commitment to the success of each mission, and B, being known as the greatest poisoner ever because he was able to take down Grand Duke Orso.
Yeah, but he doesn't know that though, right?
He doesn't know. He doesn't know what?
She he said that, but like she doesn't know that about him for sure.
Right. I understand, but I'm just saying, from Monza's perspective, she can estimate that Morbier is the more likely person to betray them, right?
Yeah.
But
yeah.
From her perspective, he only took the job when she proved to him that she wasn't going to stop at anything to do this.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
He knows he would only, and if for all of that, he could have poisoned her at the beginning, turned her into Orso, or killed her and still turned her into Orso.
Yeah. That's a good point.
He knows he wouldn't get paid until completion of the job, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm sorry. He's a dick. He's a lot of things. But a part of me is like, he's not wrong. He's not wrong. And
good point, Jeff. I mean, you are defending Morbier of all people, but you have a good point.
I think there's worse people I could be defending, and plus he's the funniest character in this book, bar none. Anyway,
in an audiobook especially.
Yeah, I bet. And last thing I'll say is, if you're gonna sow discord between poisoners, do it at a remove. Don't do it when you're all living in the same house. Where maybe you don't know how their dynamic is. You don't know later that night, Day's gonna be like, hey, bitch, what are you thinking about? Do you think you're gonna go to Orso? No, where would you get that idea? Monza, oh, word? Okay, hold on. Monza, here, take some water. Dead.
Well, I don't
you
think so, because I will say, though, to counter that point, is the fact that they have spent longer times than we see them together next to each other. And so Monza's very good at judging, like, maybe not character, but she's very good at judging, like, motivation.
Maybe.
I think she knows that Day is, like, I think she takes a very calculated maneuver here, which is oh my God, Morveer might be trying to frame you. Have you thought about that? Just a possibility. And all she's getting her to do is think and get her
Yeah.
paranoid. That's
Yeah.
pretty smart, I would say.
That is okay. You're right. No, it is. You're right. For me, it's about the timing. But now I'm realizing I forget. Do we think weeks, like days, weeks, or months have passed by from the beginning of this book, or like not the beginning of this book? We know how long that took.
Yeah.
I'm talking about from when she first meets Shivers and Friendly and gets Morveer going and all that to now. What do we think? Weeks? I think weeks, but I could be wrong.
I think maybe a month or so, maybe 2 months.
Yeah.
I'm
Okay.
not-
say about
because
2
the whole
months.
book takes a course of a year, the entire book. So
Oh,
I would
wait,
say
wait.
about
whole
month
year.
or 2 months.
Wait, how long was Monza out of action after falling? Not falling,
2
but
months,
getting 2
3
months.
months, something like that.
Oh, okay. Oh, right, because like 10 weeks that she was
Yeah.
out or something like that.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense. That makes sense. Yep. All right.
Anyways,
Anyways, so she's happy with the little, planting the seed there and everything. Hold on.
holding.
Okay, sorry. So she planted the seed. She's happy with that. She goes up to the top of the stairs. She goes into the room where she shared with Benna. She's looking around at it and goes, "Ah, the memories." You and your brother bought a whole room together, a whole house together, and you slept in the same room. Interesting. Totally normal. Totally normal
Very sus.
behavior.
Very sus.
And then and then she while she's taking in the memories or whatever,
Oh.
we hear a voice, Shivers. He goes, "Where do I sleep?" She goes, "Oh, such a difference between the dulcet tones of Benna." And she goes, "In here with me." He goes,
You
"What?"
dirty slut.
He goes, "What?" At first, she thought, a general should keep her distance, all that jazz. But at this point, listen, you take what you can get. He goes, I'm here with you. Yeah, for sure. She goes, "That's right, Optimus. It's your lucky night. Now shut the door and help me get my fucking boots off." All right, boys. So how do we rate this chapter? Go ahead.
I think there's I like the lore tidbits talking about how Viscerine is older than the New Empire, and he talks about how the New Empire is several hundred years ago and all that. And I have a New Empire video out on YouTube. Shout out. But the thing is I also really there's so much psychological stuff going on, especially with Monta and Shivers happening, and it's kind of prep. And I know these chapters seem slow, but they really it's just so meaty, So I think I'm gonna give this a 6 and a knuckle. I think.
Okay, George.
I really like the interplay between characters. I like seeing how Shivers and Monza are kind of interacting. I like how Monza's sort of beaten the fucking optimism out of Shivers, but she's not really happy about it.
Yeah, she's not.
Yeah, I just love the interactions here, and it's a shorter chapter, and not a lot happens. But I think I'll give it a 5.
Okay,
I like it.
Okay, yeah, I was gonna give it a 5 as well. I like it. It's a good chapter, decently sized, kind of short, but we get them moving into Viscerine. They are setting up shop. They are setting up their base of operations while also serving as a Motel 6. So we love this. So that's pretty much a 5 for me. So moving on, we're going to our next segment, which is our character spot. And this one, luckily, we have met them, our characters, for this spot.
Yay!
It is well, actually, Harrison, go ahead, take this over. I know this is you.
We are going to point out, even though I'm sure many of you think, no, don't do it this chapter. The family, the large, well, maybe not family, but families or a large family of farmers that are holed up inside of Mons' house. These people are kind of as a whole, right? I like that Joe always shows these very, he focuses so much on always 6 characters a book, but then you have all of these just random individuals and. Especially even though we don't get him this book, we get him next book, little people chapters. We know that Joe kind of has this idea of what each character is like. And so I think these people represent that pretty well, right? We have the daughter who's protecting her little brother. We have the old man. We have the person who's kind of in charge of them, and I think that they don't do anything wrong, really. They play along. They're trying to protect their families. They thought it'd be safer in the city. These people are just normal farmers. Presumably, probably the farm has been burned out at some point, and they don't have anything left. They didn't steal anything from Monza, and that's impressive. And I think that the actions that they take aren't unreasonable in any way, and I think pretty much anybody in their position would do the exact same thing.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, they're only trying to defend themselves as far as they know. This house has been empty for God knows how long. And, they've just broken in and they're squatting, and that's a perfectly reasonable thing to do if you're in danger. Again, I doubt the fucking for actually going into the city that's about to be under siege. So there is that. But I don't know about you guys. I'd be suspicious right now. If this had happened, like we were squatting in this house and then these like heavily armed people all show up and like make sure you don't go upstairs or we'll kill you. Yeah, I'd be quite suspicious.
I think that's why I think the actions that they go on to take are not in any way like wrong. Like I would do the same thing. I'd be like, what? You're not gonna kill us? Okay, that's cool. Like, but like also you guys are fucking what? Wait a minute, I know who you are. Like of course.
What about you, Jeff?
About the family, what do I say about them? Again, sorry to disappoint, fellas, but I am Team Morvier here. Listen, I understand. In times of war, and your city soon to be sacked, you're trying to find any place you could be safe in. Get that. But like me and George said earlier, why are you going to a city when you know it's about to be sacked? Get the fuck out of here. Secondly, he just had to choose this house, man. This house, this specific house.
It's been abandoned for probably fucking 5 years at least. Like
you don't know that. You don't know that.
What?
And
From
even
other
then,
squatters?
I don't know. But all I'll say is,
I know you hate homeless people, Jeff, but this is ridiculous.
wow. I'm not the one that threw eggs at a homeless person when you visited.
What? What the fuck?
Turned it around on you, Harrison, didn't I?
What the hell are you talking about?
I'm just setting you up for failure. Sorry. So
That's fair enough, Jeff.
Yeah,
We always it's always important to have dissenting opinions, even if they're wrong.
Oh, okay. Well, look, what do you want me to say? They're in the wrong place at the wrong time. They shouldn't be there. And look, at this point, here's the thing. I will say this. At this point, Monza could threaten them or whatever, but kick them out. Right now, there's nothing else that no one knows about anything for sure, except this group of people came in and said, this is my house. Get the fuck out. Right?
That's true. Yeah.
All right. We can revisit this in a couple of chapters. We'll move on to our second chapter read-through, which is Rats in a Sick. And here, we start off from the perspective of Casca. He's out there he gets up to the rampart, and he's just looking at the sunrise, beautiful, glistening towers of Viscerine. And as he's scanning the skyline, I guess we could call it, right? Even though it's not really a skyline. Notices that Grand Duke, is it Grand Duke? Yeah, it's Grand Duke Salier's palace is right in the middle of the river, or is it a canal? No, it's a river. It's a river, right?
Yep, it's a river.
Yeah. As he's scanning the skyline, he sees that Monza is standing motionlessly on the parapet, framed by the blue sky. Looks like she had just kind of is practicing her katas or her forms or whatever, and he sees. I guess she looks at Casca as he has a jug in his hand. She goes, I wonder how long it would take you to fall back off the wagon. Goes, joke's on you, puta. It's just water. And that he's also made a solemn oath never to touch wine again, which is a very specific. He says wine. Doesn't say anything about spirits. Keep an eye on spirits, ale, mead, all that stuff. So she's heard that before, but with little results. But he's in the slow and agonizing process of mending his ways. So anyway, he goes and talks about that he was born in Visserine, just a few streets away, actually. Happy child, full of youth, a wild youth, full of ugly incidents, including the one that obliged him to flee the city to seek his fortune as a paid soldier. And then he was like, and then Monza says that his entire life has been full of ugly incidents, and he agrees. And then in his internal monologue, he thinks about how he had few pleasant memories, in fact, and funny enough, most of them involved Monza. Interestingly enough, most of the best moments of his life, most of the best moments of his life, and the worst moments of his life. They're looking towards the other side of Visserine. There's no sign of the army of Talons yet, but Monza says that General Ganmark will turn up soon. That he's not going to turn up late to an engagement. And then she asks him, "When are you going to say that you told me?" And he, told me so. He goes, "What? What are you talking about? About Orso?" "Well, you know what I told you. Yes, never trust your own employer. And now I'm the one paying your wages." And Casca tried to grin, although it hurt his lips to do so. But fittingly, they're suspicious in their dealings with each other, right?
Yep.
And then he brings up about how they used to spar. Does she remember how they used to spar in the mornings before she got too good? And she responds with, "You mean before you got too drunk?" Which means I don't know how to read this. I guess she's not letting him self-deprecate himself too much. That it's the alcohol that dulled his abilities, not necessarily that he sucked or anything. Correct me if I'm wrong, guys, or correct me afterwards.
I think that sounds
No,
right.
it definitely seems that way.
Yeah. And then he notices, like, "Oh, is that a Calvez you have there in terms of the sword?" She goes, "Yeah, I had it made for Benna." And he goes, "Benna? The fuck would he do with a Calvez? Use to cook apples on it or something as a spit?" She goes, "Yeah." She goes, he didn't even do that much." And then he goes, "I used to have one of those. It's a damn good sword. Lost it in a card game. By the way, do you want a drink?" He holds out the jug. She goes, "You know what? I could take one." He goes, "All right." And he goes, "Ha!" And he flings the water in her face. And then he takes out a sword and he's pressing on her. And wow, 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 bang, 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 boom, bam, bam. They're sparring like they used to, folks. He's pushing on her. Well, he's pushing the pace because she's using her left hand, and we know her left hand is not her strong suit. He says she's getting soft. You fell for the old Monza wouldn't have fell for the old water in the face trick, 10 years ago. And she goes, "I didn't fall for it now, stupido." And she goes, "Do you got anything else besides water in the face, or is that as far as your swordsmanship goes?" And internally, he goes, "Not much further." But he goes, "Well, why don't we find out?" And then she springs forward. Boom. They start sparring. And, this is a fun little scene. They're sparring. They're trying to get the best of each other. She, using her left hand, not familiar with it, obviously suffering from her wounds. Casca, lifelong alcoholic, suffering from the shakes. The man's not okay. So she says that he goes, "Oh, I noticed that you're fighting left-handed. Hope that she's not taking pity on an old man." She goes, "Pity? Pfft, you know her better than that." They both get like little points they get like little stabs against each other. Nothing like too serious. And then at some point he goes, "Just one question." As they're doing their little, he goes, "Why did you betray me?" And she says, "I got tired of your jokes." He goes, but he doesn't let up. He goes, "I deserve to be betrayed. Every mercenary ends up stabbed in the front and the back. But by you? After all I taught you, after all I gave you, safety and money and a place to belong, I treated you like my own daughter." He's upset. I get the sense that he's upset, obviously. She goes, "Like your own mother, maybe. You've left out getting so drunk that you shit your clothes. I owed you, but there's a limit. I might have followed you to hell, but I wasn't taking my brother with me. And he goes, oh, yeah? Why not? He'd have been right at home. Boom! And she goes, you father! You know, and then they start, again, pressing at each other. She's really putting the work on him. She goes, if it hadn't been her, it would have been one of the other captains. Cesaria, Victus, and Dishe. They were all falling over themselves to be rid of you at Affieri. And then he goes, can we not mention that motherfucking place? They're both coming at each other. And then he goes, you were better with your right hand. She goes, you were better 10 years ago. At this point, they're kind of not embraced, but they're enveloped. Their swords are enveloped, so they're pretty close up. And then she takes her crooked little pinky finger from her right hand and shoves it right in his eye. And he goes, ah! And then she knees him right in the nuts. And he goes, ooh! And then she gives him a nice little scratch on the cheek. Wah! He goes, something to remember me by. Pow! And then he hears slow clapping coming from the door of the stairway. And he looks and he goes, oh, Vitari, why is it that you always find me at my lowest moments? And Vitari goes, because I enjoy them so much. And he goes, you bitches don't know your luck, and you'll never feel the pain of a shot to the nuts. And then they do try childbirth, and he goes, a charming invitation. But if I was a little less bruised in the relevant areas, he would definitely take them up on it. I will say, boys, tell me if I'm correct. I think there was a study on the pain index. Getting hit in the nuts is way more painful than childbirth. So suck it, ladies.
I will say, Jeffrey, that this is a dangerous line of reasoning, and I think we should abandon it.
Science said it, not me. Trust the science, man.
Science, man.
The science is settled. Anyway, but as he said that, he noticed that Vitari and Monza's attention is now focused somewhere else beyond the battlements. He drags himself up bow-legged, and they see a long column of horsemen cresting the top of a rise to the west of the city. Vitari goes, they're here. And there, Monza adds in, because she sees a second column and a pillar of smoke as well. And we could see Orso's army is here. They're deploying outside the city. Regiment after regiment are finding their positions. The foot is forming their neat lines while the horse screens them. And they see tents and carts begin to appear as the supplies come up. Basically, the army of Talons is in. It's here. They're dug in. They are settled. They are ready. And Casca, he goes, welcome, one and all, to the Siege of Viscerine. He is, of course, happy now. He's just, I don't know. This is his element. We know that. And everybody's here now. You know, the whole gang. And Shivers is on Casca's other side, just staring at what's going on, staring at the army. Friendly still in the doorway. Just rolling his dice while sitting, crisscross applesauce. They and Vitari are, muttering to each other. And Morvir looks even more sour than usual, if that was possible. And Casca goes, can no one's sense of humor just deal with the small thing as a siege? Cheer up, comrades. It isn't every day you get to see so large of an army handled so well. We should all congratulate Monza's friend, General Ganmark, on his exceptional patience and discipline. Maybe we should write him a letter. Monza's idea of a letter is to say, my dear General Ganmark, yours ever, Monscato Mercato.
Perfect delivery, Jeff.
Thank you. And Morbier looks at this, little ball of spit, falling, and he goes, oh, nice, that's very nice. Might be simple, but at least we know he'll treasure it. Shivers, he comes in with the obvious grunt. A lot of soldiers down there, and obviously who else to follow but Friendly by saying 13,400 or thereabouts. Like, what the fuck?
Well, it makes sense. If they're in all ordered ranks, you can count like that. That's fine.
Right. If you know how many soldiers go into, a squadron, platoon, regiment, all that jazz.
That's probably all he's been doing this chapter. This is why we don't get a lot of friendly chapters, because it would just be him counting things.
Yeah, pretty much. Casca is able to, using his eyeglass, he can see that it's mostly Talanese troops. Sorry, some people from Orso's older allies of Etrusani and Cazale. How does it say? Cazale. Regulars, no sign of the Thousand Swords though. Monza believes that they would be away to the east, just holding off Duke Rogant and the Austrians just to be safe. So Casca goes, great. So General Grandmark at least is here. So now the plan is to bring us all together, right, in a happy reunion. So I can assume that you have a plan. Monza goes, yeah. So Grandmark is a cultured guy. He likes art. And Morvi goes, and? She goes, no one has more art than Grand Duke Salier. I don't know why his name fucks me up. Maybe it's my Jersey accent. Salier. Casca goes, well, his collection is very impressive. And Monza adds in by saying, the finest in Styria. So when the city falls, Ganmark will go straight for the palace to try to rescue all the priceless works from the chaos. Vitari goes, yeah, to steal them for himself. Monza goes, yeah, Orso's going to want to be done with this siege as quickly as possible to leave as much time as possible to finish off Rogant, finish off the League of Eight, and claim his crown before winter comes. So that means breaches, assaults, and bodies in the streets. So Casca goes, great, yeah, streets may boast noble trees and stately buildings, but they never feel complete without a dusting of corpses. Monza goes, yeah, we'll take armor, uniforms, weapons from the dead, so when the city falls, which will be soon, we will disguise ourselves as Talanese. We find our way into the palace, and while Ganmark is going about the rescue of Salier's collection, and his guard is down, then they kill the bastard.
It's not a psychotic plan.
Yeah, and then Morvi, there's a bit of a pause, and then Morvi goes, ahem. I believe I perceive the most minute of flaws in the scheme. So Salier's palace will be among the best guarded locations in Styria at the current moment, and we are not in it. Nor likely are we to receive an invitation. And Casca interjects by saying, on the contrary, I have one already, and they are all staring at him at this point. He goes, me and Salier were quite close years ago, when he employed me to settle some boundary issues with Puranti. And they used to dine together once a week, and he assured Casca that he was welcome whenever he was in the city. And then Moravir kind of goes, would this, by any chance, have been before you became a wine-ravaged sot?
Damn.
Which was not necessary on Moravir's part. He did not need to say that. Casca, he waves a hand carelessly, but it says, while filing that slight carefully away with the rest.
He's keeping track.
He's taking notes. If you ever watched wrestling some years ago, he's Chris Jericho with the list. And then he goes, during my long and most enjoyable transformation into one, like a caterpillar turning into a beautiful butterfly. In any case, the invitation still stands. And Vitari goes, well, how do you plan to use that invitation? He goes, I imagine I will address the guards at the palace gate and say something along the lines of, I am Nakomo Casca, famed soldier of fortune, and I am here for dinner. And there's just a silence. And then Monza goes, forgive me, but I doubt your name kind of, opens doors the way it used to. And then Morvir goes, latrine doors, maybe. And then, Day laughed. Even Chuckles, not even Chuckles, even Shivers had a bit of a smile to his face. And then Monza goes, okay, Vitari Morvir, that's your job. Look at the palace, find us a way in. Casca, you know something about uniforms. He goes, yeah, yes, I do. So Monza basically says, find us some uniforms for us and take, friendly with you as well once the assaults begin. And I like how Casca says, we will most nobly strip the dead to their naked asses. Then they notice that Duke Orso's fleet has arrived for the siege to completely cut them off, and they're going, "Wow, we are really entirely cut off." Friendly adds in, "Like a prison," with almost a smile of his own of his own. And then Morveer kind of snaps at this because he's talking to Casca. He goes, "We are helpless as rats in a sack. You speak quite as if that was a good thing." And then Casca goes, "5 times I have been under siege and always quite relished the experience. It is a wonderful way of limiting the options, of freeing the mind. When life is a cell, there's nothing more when life is
Liberating.
when life is a cell, there's nothing more liberating than captivity." And that, folks, is the end of the chapter. Boys, how do you rate that one?
I reckon this is a shorter one, but I like to see Casca kind of like becoming more of the person that we saw in the first trilogy, and we know that he has this famous effect. What would we call it? Like a famous fucking almost stupidity in the face of danger, or bravery, not stupidity.
Well, it's sometimes they're both in the same, especially if you're in Simba and the Badlands. But go ahead.
Well, I like the development of the relationship, or we get to see more of Monza and Casca's relationship, and the way that he's definitely planning something against Morveer here. I think that's quite funny.
Filing it away carefully with the rest.
Yeah, biding his time.
Uh-huh.
I reckon I'm going to give this one a 5 as well. So double 5s today.
Love it. Harrison, you?
I think I'm gonna go with a 4. I think that it's really well done with the character. Like, I like their sparring, and I like how there's all this wit going back and forth. But it is kind of just reestablishing things we already know, as well as just kind of, okay, here we go, here comes the siege. So I think a 4 is fair.
Okay. I'll give it a 4 and a knuckle. I want to bridge that gap. Just I was gonna repeat it with the 5. I was like, let George have the shine, the spotlight with the 2 5s in a row. So I'll give it a 4 and a knuckle. Short chapter, great banter, not a lot of movement in terms of plot. But we get Casca's perspective for the totality of this chapter, and it's great with his desire to spar with Monza. Kind of brings him back to what they used to be, but then that bitterness of her betrayal comes up, where during his questioning of her, his ability to just revert into that comic relief mode, and then always putting that front up even when he's being insulted, and we see that he's planning to do something about it. Here's where Morveer is fucking up. Do not unnecessarily insult people. But yeah, 4 and a knuckle for me. So that's great. So we'll move on to our final segment, folks, which is our community interaction segment. We don't have too much for you, but do want to let you know, at least on my end, by the time this episode releases, which is this coming Friday, the 19th, another audience chamber video will be released. It is my favorite one so far, and it actually contains the least amount of dialogue from me personally. So I hope you all enjoy it. More will be released, and these ones the setting will be a little bit different, as I live in a different place now, so the background will be different. I will try to bring you the same high quality Oscar-winning level of filmmaking that you are so accustomed to for these past 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 years. Harrison, you got anything to add?
Yeah, for the community interaction, I'm working on a video. I've actually finally got it recorded. I originally was good recording it last Sunday, and I lost power mid-recording, and it was really disheartening. So I've re-recorded it, just got to edit it. Should be out sometime later this week, or for you all, it should be out, later this week.
Yeah, and so possibly Friday, right?
Well, hopefully Friday. Yeah, that's what my goal is. And then
double feature
as well. We also want to. What was that?
I said double feature.
Double feature, baby. Just like when you're watching cartoons at home, baby.
Yeah.
Also want to point out, I think Jeff's about to say it, but I'm going to steal it. And thank you to our Patreon supporter. We haven't had one before, and it's kind of
yeah,
cool. It's exciting.
yeah. We gotta talk about that.
We don't gotta go too crazy, with the cheese whiz. Maybe they didn't want to be talked about, but we do say we appreciate you just helping cover the cost of the actual podcast itself. We don't ever talk about Patreon because we're really not trying to push it on people, but it really does mean a lot that you gave us anything at all. So thank you.
Yeah. Honestly, that was so cool. We saw that. I was like, holy shit, we gotta do something for this guy. I don't know what. Maybe we take sensual boudoir photos. I don't know. We got to do something for the guy, though.
No, Jeffrey, no. We've already talked about
this. Something, man. I don't know. We have to do something because that is incredibly nice. That is incredibly nice.
Absolutely.
I honestly completely forgot we had a Patreon. Then I saw the email. Goes, what the fuck?
Yeah, that was awesome. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. You know who you are. You're the only one. So thank you.
This episode's going to come out and they're going to unsubscribe.
Oh no!
And that's fine too. Literally anything at all. If we don't talk about it. It's if you want to contribute to the podcast because you love the podcast, we really appreciate it. But also, there's no pressure to do so.
Yeah, if you unsubscribe, just tell us what we did wrong. Was it the offer of the boudoir or was the rescindment of that offer? Please tell us. I'm kidding. Okay. Well, that's awesome. George, you want to add anything else to the community interaction segment?
No, I think I'm all good. I am going to come out with a new theory video at some point, but things are just a bit busy at the moment, and the weeks fucking fly by, don't they?
Yeah. Do you want me to be a little bit more on top of you? No pun intended. In terms of when are you gonna release the next theory video?
Yeah, I mean you can. I don't know if it'll help. I don't really respond to peer pressure.
You don't really respond to us anyway, so all right, maybe. I don't know. Oh, shots fired.
I'm trying.
I know. You're listen. You're doing great. I'm just being a cunt. I apologize.
I love you, Jeff.
I love you too. All right. That's our show, everyone. We want to thank you all for listening and supporting this podcast. As you all know, this is a passion project for the three of us, and your support really does mean a lot.
Join us next week as we cover Mercy and Cowardice and The Odd Couple.
And make sure you follow us on all of our social media, and we have a website. It's circleoftheworld.com.
And if you haven't already, please subscribe to our podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or any podcast app that you use. And please make sure to rate and review this podcast. Thank you all again for listening.
You bitches don't know your luck.